So what about those Christ letters that were channeled back in the day? Hey guys, John here in the studio bright and early with my mug of coffee. I hope this day finds you well. I wanted to hop on to do this video this morning. I often get asked about channeled writings from the 80s, 90s, and the early 2000s. There seems to be just a plethora of them out there. But this is one I get asked about occasionally. Let me just read the comment that came in. Hey, John, I wanted to ask you if you had any experience or heard of the Christ letters. It is a channeled text said to be from Jeshua in the early 2000s. I was curious of your opinion on it. Okay, so, well, first of all, the Christ letters came out in 1993, so a little earlier than that, which was the heyday of channeled information coming through people. Christ letters, as with almost anything that you'll ever run into in life, have some truth in them. The Bible's filled with truth. Shakespeare's filled with truth. Marvel movies are filled with truth. You can find truth everywhere, so you can find some truth in this. The very issue of this one, however, is it's coming through someone who calls himself Theana. Her real name was Sarah Lonsdale. And after she died, she continued to channel to her husband or something. But when you dive into this text, it lost me right away. It lost me in the very beginning. The second it came in to say, I am here, I am coming through to warn you of impending fearful events that are coming, and, you've got to, basically a giant warning of we've got to get ourselves right or we're going to have this terrible event that's happening, and oh, it's horrible, horrible, horrible. That right there lost me because Jeshua was not a fear-based person, nor did he believe that there's any fate or destiny. So they lost me right away. The second thing that lost me on this was the fact that supposedly Jeshua says, I have come at this time and prepared this one individual who had a receptive mind to be my voice. And so this was very much deifying herself, and making herself set apart as someone extra special. And that's completely antithetical to everything Jeshua taught. It's 100% antithetical to everything Jeshua taught. The next thing is, he calls himself the Christ letters. Jeshua didn't believe in Messiah, saviors, or Christ. The concept of a Christ would be antithetical to everything he taught. And it goes on and it talks about the spiritual laws of the universe, the spiritual laws of love. The concept of spiritual laws is a New Age dogma that was created in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. This idea that these laws are in place that you must adhere to, that's just New Age dogma that is just another limitation on your divinity. The next part that dives into is the idea of the ego. Their definition of the ego in these writings are very much laying into this late 90s, early 2000s new definition of ego that is not what the definition of ego is. Ego only means your awareness of self, the I. I'm aware that I am an individual. And she uses it in the concept of vanity and this power of vanity or narcissism. And that's not how the word is interpreted or used until the late 90s and early 2000s, when they started using this word as meaning narcissist. But there are some hidden truths in this text. Absolutely, there are. The majority of it is self-aggrandizement and making themselves be the receptacle of this information, and then fitting in their period New Age dogmas to fit the narrative. And so when I can't I reviewed this morning again to remember and refresh my memory on it. And the more I reviewed it, the more I was like, this is just a convoluted mess, is what this is. It talks about the idea of this fearful event that we have to overcome, but it also talks about how our thoughts, words, and deeds are creating our experience. So you'll find the simple truths in there, but it's in the simplicity. It's in the simple truth that you find reality. In my opinion. So when I get into the Christ letters, I find them to be very much not only a mishmash of late 90s, early 2000s New Age dogmas that didn't exist prior, and some truth. It's not the best source for truth, in my opinion, because the truths are far mixed in between the dogma. There's much more dogma than there is truth. I think all the channel works that came through in the late 80s to the early 2000s were very interesting things, but in reality, the majority of them are trying to make sense of the New Age dogma of the time. And the Christ letters are exactly the same. They're mixing in the word Christ, which to me is like delineating him as someone higher or better, which this whole thing does. He is this supreme ascended master, so on. He would have hated that. he would have hated that, because that's not at all what he was teaching. I am the Son of Man. Didn't say he was the Son of God. And so when I look at the Christ letters, I look at them as just a mishmash of information from that time, and someone who is trying to set themselves apart as the receptive mind that can receive the message from the Christ. And so to me, they're not. There's not a lot of validity, except for a few small pieces of truth that come out. That's my thought on this. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.